Macros are simple codes to automate repetitive tasks in Excel. With a macro code, you could add your own features and enhancement to help you accomplish exactly what you need to do quickly with just a click of a button. So by default, the Microsoft Excel workbook does not have the macros enabled. So you need to enable the macros. To do that, you need to hover here and right click, and then you go to customize ribbon, and then you select you check the developer box here. Alternatively, you could go to file, option, and then again you come to ribbon, customize ribbon, and you check the developer box. So I've already done this. So once you check the developer box, you see the developer tab appears on the Microsoft Excel workbook. So if I click on this tab, I can now see my macros and macros functionality. So let's assume I have this sets of data. This data, I usually get them from my simulation model. So I run several simulations every time, every day. And each time I get those results, I need to put them into Excel and do some editing and do some other calculations to get the final data that I want. So rather than do this manually every day, I could create simple macros that will allow me run all the calculations I want to do or other modification I want to do with the data. Before you start recording with macros, you need to specify your reference point. So any active cell that you have selected, the macros will take that active cell as your reference point. So if I select G1, the macro will take my G1 as my reference cell. But in this case, I want to take A1 as my reference macros cell. So next I go to the developer tab, and then I select record macro. And then here it opens up a wizard for me to give a name to my macro. So I could call this macro performance underscore calc. So one other thing to note when giving a name to your macro, your name shouldn't have a space. You should either have an underscore and be all blocked together. Here, you could decide to specify a shortcut key to run the macro whenever you want to run that. So I could specify Ctrl+Shift+D as our shortcut key. Here, it wants to know where we want to store these macros. If you click select these, drop that menu, you have three options. You can either save this macro you're creating in this Excel workbook. It becomes only associated to this workbook. If you select personal macro workbook, it becomes associated with all of your Excel. Anytime you open your Excel, you will see this macro you've created as among the list of macros you have in your Excel. So once you're happy with any of your selections, then you click OK. In this case, I'm going to select this workbook. Then here you have description. So you need to put a description of your macro. So when next you come, maybe also your colleague comes across this macro, they will be able to understand what the macro does. So let me just say here to calculate. And once I'm happy with the description, I can now select OK. And then it prompts us to save the macro. For you to save the macro, you need to save it as an Excel macro enabled worksheet. So that way you can easily run your macros on this Excel sheet. So I have to select this now, Excel macro enabled workbook, and then I select save. So this is now saved. And then automatically it starts recording every active action I make on this Excel sheet. It's not also a function of time while recording. So I could decide to stop at some point, go have my lunch, come back, it doesn't take any record of the time that I've, gone out to do other things. So it only takes record of active actions I make on the Excel workbook. Active actions could be click that I make on the Excel workbook. So I'll just go straight to my calculations here. So let's say I want here to be SOP and I want here to be efficiency. And I want to create a table out of this. And I want here to be this, subtract this, and then I want here to be this over this, and maybe I want to create a chart. So I select the insert tab and select the type of chart I want, and then I could give the chart series a name, call it SOP versus EFF. So I now have my chart, and once I'm happy with the chart, or I could also do other functionalities you want to do within this environment. If you're happy and you're satisfied with everything you want to do, then you go to the developer tab and stop recording with the macro. So let's say subsequently I've run another simulation for plant 2 and I have my results here. Now, rather than go through the same process of computing this and doing up my chart, I could just use the macros to run this automatically. So to run the macros we've created, there are 3 options you could do. You could either use the shortcut keys that you have, type it in, or you could go to macros here, and then you have the macro you selected. If you have a drop list of other macros, you select a specific one that is associated with this, and then you select run. If you're not happy with the macro, you want to delete it, you could come here and select delete. So in this case, I want to run this macro. So I could either come here and select run, and automatically it produces the result for this plan. So I could do it again for another one. Again, this time, rather than use the run key, I could decide to create a button. So to create a button, you could come here on the developer tab and you go to insert, and then you select button. And once you select button, then you have a crosshair sign comes up here for you to draw the button you want to create. Let's say I create a button here, and then it will ask me to select what macro that I want to be associated with that button. So is this macro I want to be associated with the button? And once I'm happy with the one I've selected, I select OK, and then I could give the button any name, say so I could call it run. And by the way, anytime you want to edit this, let's say you click outside of the box, anytime you want to edit this, you need to right click and then select the edit, and then you can edit. Or if you want to drag, you could again drag to any direction you want it to stay. And once I click on this, now run, so yeah, go out and click run. You see it runs the result for plan 3 for me. And this is the way macros could enable you automate your process in Excel. The second example I'm going to show you, let's say within this Excel sheet, I have several Excel sheets that I will be referring to. You see, I got up to 6, Excel sheet 6, Excel sheet 7, and I can keep going on and on and on and on and all that. So again, rather than go through this process of scrolling, I could also create a macro So each time I want to specify a particular Excel sheet, I will just use a click of a button and it takes me straight to that Excel sheet. So let's assume I want to go to this Excel sheet called performance. So if I come back here from my first, let's assume I want to start from my first Excel sheet and I want to go to that performance, I could create a macro that can enable me do that. So to do that, I will just create another macro here now. I will say, again, record, and I could call it switch tab to switch. I'm giving a description to switch between sheet 1 and performance sheet. If you want to give it a shortcut key, you could go ahead and do that, but I'm not going to do that this time around. Yeah, and then I could just, it's recording now. So the next thing I'll do is to go straight to that sheet I want. I select on it, and that's it. I've finished doing the recording, and then I click stop. So with this now, when I go back to my first sheet, plant 1, so I could now create a button for that. So let's assume I go to back that macro rather than run it through this. I want to create a button. So I'll come here and then I create a button, and then I can draw the button and I select that particular macro that is associated with that. It's this one. And once I'm happy with it, I can call this switch to performance tab, switch to performance sheet. And once I'm happy with that, that's fine. So in order to do that, I could just select it, and then it takes me to performance sheet. And if you want to go back to the first sheet, you could also create another macro here, so it could take you back to that first sheet. And that way you can control what happens within your Excel sheet. So we are back to the plant sheet. One other thing to note is that you could also edit your macros you have created. Any of the macros you have created, you could edit them. Let's say I want to edit this performance CAC macro I've created. I want to add more functionality to it, or I want to make changes. So you can select a particular macro and then you go to edit, and then it brings this page for you. And within this page, this is the code of that macro we have created. So you could change functionalities here. You could decide to, okay, rather than have SOP, I could decide to call it some other thing and call it shaft output power. And you could make other changes depending on what you want to make. I could call this efficiency. You could make other changes, and again, you could also make other changes here depending on what kind of change you want to make. And if you understand coding properly, you could also do as much change as you want. And once you're happy with the changes you have made, you could come here and select the save button, and then you can close this off, and it's saved and all that. I hope you find this video useful and you now know how to create simple macros in Excel. If this video was helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe. Also hit the notification icon so you can be notified on my new weekly videos. If you have any difficulty creating this, please leave a comment below this video and I'll be happy to respond or to support you in any way that I can. And if you have any topic on Excel that you want me to cover, please also leave a comment in the comment section below this video and I'll be happy to add that to my video content. Thank you for watching and see you in my next video. Bye for now.